7 with Steve, Cat, Ryan, Amanda, and Eric. And the voice of NEW, Vince Berry. Hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT? Handing out smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by TagMeADate. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here. No safe space, now listen in. Time to hear from some of the greats.
Wow. Welcome
This
to
one's
War
for
Report,
Sam
everybody.
Uso.
Yeah, that was. Whew. I mean, it was a good segment that eventually affected some other things down the line for the show, but we will get into that. Yeah, Sammy Uso. Not even Sami Zayn, but Sammy Uso. Yeah, we had a segment last night on Raw, so we'll talk about that in a minute. As I said, welcome to the War Report. We're talking all things pro wrestling. We got Steve, Ryan, and Eric here. I was trying to make my camera look better by wiping it off, and I made it look worse. All right, that's great. Well, I hope everybody's having a good day. My basement is not wet anymore, but I'm not. It's just still disorganized. If you were here last week, my friggin' water heater burst. I've got a new one now, but my basement had some water damage that need to get taken care of. So I'm on my iPad right now. But welcome to the show. We're going to talk some wrestling, and I suppose the place to start is exactly where we started with this music. Last night was Raw 30, celebrating the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. It is wild to me that it's been 30 years. Hi, Tara. I hope you're doing all right.
Hi, Tara.
Tara's always in the chat talking about her nieces and nephews and stuff, and in our group, not on this chat, but in our personal chat. She's so I hope your nieces and nephews are doing good too, there, Tara. But yeah, it's 30th anniversary of Raw, 1993. Holy shit! I would have been 5. Actually, not even 5, because just like a week or two before being 5 years old when the show debuted. So it's amazing to think that Raw has been around that long, and to think that stuff like Monday Nitro came and went, and stuff like Impact Wrestling, TNA. TNA Impact on Spike TV was a thing for a long time, and I know that the company's still going, but they're not on Spike TV or anywhere like that anymore. So it's just, and we had a 19-year gap where TNA was kind of in there, but we didn't have another real competitor until AEW on Wednesdays. Glad to hear everyone's doing well, Tara. It was just really, wow, 30 years is a long time for any kind of TV show, but for wrestling, that's especially amazing. So we'll talk about that. Actually, we should just take a quick break here because I don't want to bring the whole show down. But after we went off air, last week, did we already talk? We didn't talk about Jay Briscoe, did we?
No, we didn't have it.
That's what I
during
thought.
the show. It happened about an hour after.
I was just going to say it happened right after, and Tony Khan made an unfortunate announcement that Jamin Pugh, also known as Jay Briscoe, was tragically taken from us at 38 years of age in a car accident, where we don't exactly know what happened, but we have heard that the other driver crossed the median, and they were both driving pickup trucks and came into a head-on collision. Both drivers passed away. Both drivers had children in the vehicle, and I don't know the status of the other driver's children, but there was a point where one of Jay Briscoe's daughters, I believe it was Gracie, was paralyzed from like the waist down and couldn't feel anything. She's now in a wheelchair, according to the mother. She can feel things, but obviously still still recovering from surgery and from a car accident. She's using a wheelchair, but she does have feeling again in her legs. So I think it's going to be a matter of physical therapy. But it's terrible to think that somebody like this. Usually we hear about somebody had a heart attack, or it was due to steroids or a drug overdose or some sort of choice that they made in their life that ended up as a consequence of those things, they pass away. Jay Briscoe, that was none of those things. Great wrestler, family man. Him and his brother were so young when they first started wrestling that legally they couldn't, because you have to be 18. So they would put masks on and wrestle with masks on, so nobody knew who they were until they turned 18. They wrestled here in the U.S. for Ring of Honor mainly, and other United States independent wrestling companies. They were the IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions over in Japan. They spent a little time over in Pro Wrestling Noah and some other places in Japan as well. Leaving not just a reputation of great tag team matches all over the world, but Jay Briscoe was also a Ring of Honor World Champion and put on a lot of great matches with Jay Lethal. He was one of those guys that Ring of Honor could rely on, him and his brother, whether they were wrestling against each other, which would always be fun, or as a tag team. They were one of the absolute best in the world. And Tony Khan really, he knew that. He wanted them to be with AEW day one. I know that there were some things that Jay said on Twitter, 10 plus years ago at this point, that he caught a lot of flack from. Kind of cost them an opportunity to go to WWE and go other places. Unfortunately, cost the Briscoes the opportunity for AEW, to appear on AEW. Still worked with this new version of Ring of Honor.
But they did get to wrestle FTR, which was awesome.
They wrestled FTR in some of the best matches I've ever seen. That is tag team wrestling. It's two guys, that know each other like brothers in FTR, and two guys who were actual brothers in the Briscoes. And I mean that you could have put them against anybody, and they put on a great match. It's just terrible to hear someone like Jay Briscoe, who he wasn't old, he wasn't ill, this is such a tragic thing that at 38 years old, for us who didn't know him, we lost a great wrestler. And then the people that do know him, and I know from one of my friends who was I went to high school with this guy, and he was a weatherman down in the Delaware area, who ended up becoming friends with Jay just because Jay thought he was a cool weatherman, and he was like, "Hey, I like your wrestling," and then they ended up just becoming friends.
That whole town, that whole community loved him.
They would. So, apparently from things I've been hearing online is that if you went to a Ring of Honor show in Maryland or Delaware or anywhere in that whole, kind of Delco area, they would take a bus. They would literally rent like a yellow school bus and pack the bus full of people and drive to these Ring of Honor shows. Babyface or heel, they were wearing Dem Boys shirts, Reach for the Sky. They would cheer for them even if they were doing bad stuff, because that was the Delaware section of the crowd. So, the town showed them a lot of love. Everybody's, it's great that everybody's coming out of the woodwork for this, and also donating to the GoFundMe. I think they hit their goal on the first day. Of course, Chris Jericho donated, Cody donated, a lot of people, the Bucks each individually donated.
Tony Khan also said he's going to take care of the family.
Right, and Tony Khan said he's going to take care of the family. They've also released a memorial T-shirt similar to what they did for Brody. Unfortunately, last week, right after he passed away, Warner Brothers Discovery did believe that because their stance was we didn't want the Briscoes on TV because of these things that Jay had said in his tweets. I do want to say that Jay Briscoe since then had come out and not just apologized, but personally made strides in his personal life to try not to, to understand more about the people that he, initially discriminated against, and to become a better, more well-rounded person. And there's a lot of wrestlers and wrestling involved people in the LGBTQ plus community that after he passed away said that, he was their friend and he truly did, he said something hurtful, but then made amends for it, and he spent the last 10 years of his life paying for the mistake and making up for the mistake. So, I don't want to dwell on the things that he said, because to me, the people that needed to forgive him and have needed to see the work that he did forgave him and saw the work that he did. So it's not for me to say that man shouldn't have been on TV. He absolutely should have been. Warner Brothers Discovery relented for this week. This week there will be a tribute to Jay Briscoe. There will be a tribute match. Mark Briscoe, his brother, is going to be wrestling Jay Lethal, and Jay Lethal was one of his rivals and his good friends as well, as I mentioned earlier. So There's also a Ring of Honor tribute show that they taped after last week's Dynamite. That'll be released on YouTube and on Honor Club for free. You won't even have to pay for Honor Club. You can just go to the website. But I just want to get it out there right, at the top of the show so we can just talk some wrestling. Losing Jay Briscoe is not just a big loss to the wrestling community. It's a loss to Delaware. It's a loss to his county and his town, and especially for his family because, I mean, they were videos of him practicing his daughter's cheerleading routines with her, and
isn't that where they were going?
They were going to cheerleading practice supposedly, or he was either picking them up from school or driving them to cheerleading practice around that time of day. They're not exactly sure,
He
but
was just
it was in that area.
A regular, wonderful father, family man, and.
Yeah, and we don't know what happened with the other driver. It's very possible that other driver could have had a medical issue, like a heart attack or a seizure that caused them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were drunk or texting or not paying attention or intentionally moved over on the side of the road or whatever. There could be a very good reason why this other driver did what they did, and unfortunately, both of you can't even say, oh, this person should be charged or whatever. They both passed away. It is a tragedy. Two families are without. One, I think, lives without a mother, and one family is without a father. So, it's just a tragic situation all the way around. And Tara, I agree. Warner Brothers Discovery should have given the approval to do a tribute show for Jay last week, right after it happened. But I think the backlash to what happened last week on Dynamite is what caused them to change their mind and allow Tony Khan to do it. Because the whole internet got on, fans, wrestlers, everyone got on to let people know that it wasn't right that there wasn't a tribute. So hopefully this week will be a make good, and we'll really be able to express what Jay Briscoe meant to wrestling, what he meant to his family, and really give a nice tribute to him. So rest in peace, Jamin. Jamin Pugh, aka Jay Briscoe. Just a terrible, terrible tragedy, and unfortunately, as we do on these shows, we gotta move along and talk about wrestling because that is part and parcel, the ups and downs, the tragedies and triumphs of the pro wrestling business. And we had a tragedy last week, and now we just gotta hope there's some triumphs coming on the way. So Rumble season's coming, WrestleMania is coming. Maybe there's some good news around the corner. But that was just it was rough to hear last week. So we'll head on to another topic. But goddamn. Yeah, it was rough. It was a rough week to hear all the details come out after every day. It was almost like hearing about Chris Benoit. You go, Chris Benoit died, and then over the next 24 hours, you hear all this stuff that happened. With Jay Briscoe, it was like, oh, well, he passed away, and they're like, well, what happened? Did he get sick? No, it was a car accident. Then you find out he died, and then you find out his kids were injured, and then one of them might be paralyzed, and they got airlifted to a children's hospital. It's just like, oh my God. The news cycle was just, for a couple of days there was constant about updates to the situation. So it was draining, it was exhausting, but tis the life of a wrestling fan, unfortunately. As I said, we have to put up with the triumphs and the tragedies. So
people have to understand that for us as fans, it often, even if we hadn't met these people, it often feels like we lost a family member or close friend.
Wrestling is a very different business, man. Go ahead.
You see them every week, and you root for them, and
for years, it's not just somebody that you see once or twice on TV or a couple seasons of a TV show. This guy was 3 years older than me. I pretty much saw his entire career, aside from, when he was 17 or 18 years old wrestling in a mask. You knew who the Briscoes were from like 2003 on in wrestling. So, just it's amazing to
yeah, and it's funny too because back then, I thought you hear the name Briscoe, you think Jack and Jerry from
I was thinking the same thing.
NWA, and you think like these like awesome like technical wrestlers, but these guys were totally different. What they made, they blazed the trail, and I don't even think it's arguable. They were the greatest Ring of Honor tag team champions.
100%. There's a saying in wrestling about Mick Foley would say it about Terry Funk. You watch wrestling, and as a fan, you go, wrestling's fake, but that guy's real. Whenever I watch the Briscoes cut a promo, you go, wrestling's fake. Those guys are real.
There's nothing fake about those
guys. There's nothing fake about that. Somebody had to tell those guys wrestling was fake and be like, hey, calm down. But that's what
their promos are legendary.
And while, literally working at a chicken farm in Delaware.
Their chicken farm, not for somebody.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But
farm.
working on, like, not cutting a promo. Somebody's holding an iPhone, and they're, like, shoveling chicken shit and throwing chickens into cages. And they're just talking about their opponents.
It's almost like the Matt Hardy compound before there was the Matt Hardy compound. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a great video out there, and we'll move on to Raw in a second. But I just, it's just indicative of these guys. Matt Hardy, the Hardy Boys saw something in these guys. There was a whole run where Matt was running solo in Ring of Honor. There was a time where the Hardys were in Ring of Honor. But when Matt was a singles guy, they were going against each other, him and Jay Briscoe. They showed a video of Matt Hardy using an edger, like a weed whacker, to edge his walkway. And he did, like, just a terrible job. And then he cuts his promo, and they cut over to Jay Briscoe. And he's like, in addition to doing the chicken stuff, was also like a really good landscaper. And so they cut to him with a weed whacker and an edger, and he's doing the lawn and like doing like this expert, like cutting a curve in the path and all this stuff, just to kind of like show up Matt Hardy and be like, you know what, you think you're this big, rich, tough guy, whatever, because he was doing big money Matt, but he didn't know how to do the little things like use a weed whacker. And Jay Briscoe's like, listen, I'm a Southern, I'm down home boy. I know what to do with this weed whacker, and I can cut a promo at the same time, which is like, I don't know. If you gave me a weed whacker and then told me to cut a wrestling promo, I think I could do one or the other. I might not even get the motherfucker started. You know what I mean? Like, I might not even be able to pull the cable. And Matt Hardy, like, I wouldn't even be able to get the shit going. So just to see him cut a promo while weed whacking is the most Briscoe thing that they could do. So, rest in peace, Jamin. And man, I guess we'll see what's happening on Wednesday when they do the tribute for him. It's going to be another. If they do another big tribute like they do with Brody, it's going to be emotional. But this week, as I said, 30 years of Raw, 1993. I hate to make a hard cut, but we do kind of have a time limit here. 1993 show comes on the air, and now 30 years later, here we are. We have the big stars of the past eras. Opened up with Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan coming out, which is kind of interesting.
The only thing they missed was Damian Demento making his 30-year anniversary appearance.
I would have been okay with that, because there was a time about 10, 15 years ago where Damian Demento started getting back into wrestling, and he got onto YouTube, and he would cut these promos, and he's like, he would hold like a big cigar, and he would, don't you call me a jobber. If you ever call me a jobber in real life, I'm going to smack you in the face. So there's a whole he stopped making YouTube videos maybe about 7, 8 years ago, but there are videos on there where he just cuts these wrestling promos. He was trying to like get back into it and have like one more run.
But I think with having Taker and Shawn Michaels, who were on the first Raw,
on the very first one, it's hey, how's it going? Is that was it Kevin?
Yeah,
it just says Facebook users, probably Kevin. Hope it's Kevin. It's not Kevin. Tell me what your name. Tell me that it's not Kevin.
No,
I'll say hi.
It's Kevin.
All right, excellent. How's it going, Kevin? Usually, I can tell by the MF Doom, Facebook profile picture. But anyway, we had guys there who on the original show. I mean, Hogan. It's a little funny that Hogan was on, because Hogan, you don't really associate him with that era, even though he was on Raw. There was that lead up to the '93 King of the Ring.
Several, maybe like less than a handful of.
I was going to say less than 5, I'm sure. And then after he lost to, because post WrestleMania 9, he had to he dropped the belt to Yokozuna because Harvey Whippleman had the fireball in the camera at WrestleMania, or not WrestleMania, rather, King of the Ring, and, blew the fireball in Hogan's face and pinned him. And then the next time you saw him was in WCW like a year later. But,
yeah, Hogan had more Raw appearances in his 2002 return.
Exactly. Yes, when he was WWF and WWE champion.
But we should talk about that. The fact that Steve was there.
Yes, so that's the important part. I'm gonna lay back here a little bit. This guy was here live and in living color. Steve, tell us a little bit about your trip there, because was it you and Al who went? Oh man, Steve, if you're talking, we can't hear you, sir. Oh no! Oh no! Steve, we can't hear you.
Oh crap! We do know that it started out great with the Philly cheesesteak,
Right? Yeah, they had to. We were talking about that as we went off air last week. It had to start with a Philly
And I think
cheesesteak.
this is the same arena that Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, that will be
I
for
believe
Mania
so.
40.
Unless they're using the Eagles Stadium.
Right. That could be the other thing is they could be using the Eagles football stadium for that. But I mean, Philly in April. Whoa.
Oh,
But anyway.
that might be brutal. I'll look that up while we're waiting for Steve.
Oh, Steve, are you back? I saw you dropped in and out. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
All right. Yes, we can. So, as we said, our fearless leader here, Steve, went on a little trip to Monday Night Raw 30. And go ahead, tell us a little bit about what happened, man.
All right, so what a fucking trip.
Vince, can you hear him?
Yeah, I got him. Can you hear him, Ryan?
No, I can't. That's why that's why I
No.
asked.
Only you can hear me?
I can
I
hear
get.
you.
Oh, okay. Ryan. So I guess Ryan's the odd one out.
All right, so I can tell you the oh boy, it was a great time. We we stopped, of course, on the way and had Geno's because how do you not go and have
Oh, of course.
Geno's?
Well,
So
somebody said, "Well, that's because you got to go to Pat's."
we actually were going to do both,
Smart.
and we didn't have time. But and let me tell you, the cheesesteak is so goddamn big
Right.
that I wasn't really like itching to have another one anyway. But holy shit, it's still fucking great. So as good as I remember, anyway. So by the way, Vince, you're gonna have to take control of the comments and all that because I had to switch to my phone. So
Oh, geez. Okay.
yeah, so I should be able to end the broadcast, but that's about it. So
Oh boy.
just
All right.
FYI. But anyway, so yeah, so we had phenomenal seats. You will not be able to see me on TV. We were right, really up on the stage, off to the side, pyro side. So my ears are still ringing from all the pyro, but I was so close to the pyro I could still smell it.
Wow.
But there were pillars. So as they were on the stage when they first come out, I can't see them. Only until they get to like where the beginning of the ramp is to go down. So that kind of sucked. But we were so close and then so close to the ring. And I mean, what a Raw to be a part of.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there were some things that were disappointing. There were some things that were home runs. But that's every anniversary show, right? So I think overall, it was great. We had great seats. The place was packed. There was not an empty seat in the arena. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So they've had all these reports coming out every week that, of course, this is being leaked because they're trying to sell the company. But every week they're going, "Hey, this is the most money we've made in Cleveland. This is the most money we've made at XYZ." Last night was the highest recorded gate they've ever had in the city of Philadelphia.
Well, right. But I can confirm this is accurate.
Sold out. Right. Of course.
Yeah, it was packed. So yeah, man, it was cool. It was great to see Brock come back. I was pissed about the steel cage match, and obviously that's getting a lot of flack. Listen, they ran out of time. Roman's segment that kicked off the show went longer than they expected,
Right.
and ultimately that's what I don't get is that's what you choose.
Exactly. That's the
like,
argument is why that segment.
right? Like there were
Unless they
so many
weren't
other
planning a
options.
full match. So is just cut it down to the beatdown.
Right. That's basically what they did. They told them that they could either do like a 3-minute long cage match or they could just do the angle that they planned for after the cage match. And they were like, I guess we'll just do the angle, which stinks because then, not to skip ahead, but you've got a segment with Charlotte and Charlotte and what's her name there, Sonya Deville, and that's for the SmackDown. It's a SmackDown feud,
Right.
and I know I know Rick was out there and whatever else, and there was arguments for why they had the segment. But why have that match that ends up with a predictable result of Sonya losing to Charlotte and people not really giving a shit?
Right? Couldn't they have waited to SmackDown for that?
And couldn't they? They don't even need to do like. There's no.
Well, no, it was Bianca that fought.
Was it Bianca?
Yeah, Bianca wound up wrestling her, and then that led to Alexa Bliss showing up
Okay.
on the screen
Okay.
afterwards and cutting a
That whole
promo.
thing,
Which
I think, that
that
whole
was another
segment
thing that
there.
pissed me off. Well, it's like I'm finally there live, and I'm seeing her on the screen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they made some odd choices. The Bella twins
They're not
were
happy.
advertised the show. Yeah, the Bella twins went on Instagram Live after we were taking questions and kind of said that they didn't like what was planned for them, so they chose not to go. They flew all the way there and chose not to attend. They also said that there was something about WWE couldn't really show clips of like the women's revolution and all that stuff because
of Mercedes and
Mercedes
Saraya
in Japan, Saraya's in AEW.
Oh
so
yeah,
it was
we're all really upset that the Bells weren't there.
say what you know.
listen, there's a lot of people that are.
They
Yeah,
weren't Ric
I
Flair
know.
and Ricky Steamboat, but they they did something for women's wrestling. As funny as it sounds, because
They played their role.
they ended up showing people that, hey, women's wrestlers can make demand. If you're popular enough, just like a male wrestler, you can make demands. They said, hey, we're gonna go. If we're in Florida Championship Wrestling right now, if you don't promote us to the main roster, we're just gonna leave and go do something else. We can model or be on TV or whatever. We don't need this. We're too pretty for this fucking shit. And they're like, all right, fine, you're on TV.
Well,
And they made a run out of it.
Well, one thing I can say is that unlike someone like Eva Marie, they actually cared about the business.
And that's the other
That's
thing.
the
They
difference.
came in.
They wanted to be there. They made strides to get
right
better
to try and
whether
improve.
They did or not, whatever.
I mean, I think Brie might have improved more than I don't know, but they also, they kind of pushed for the Total Divas thing, the Total Bellas thing, and that opened up a whole other area that WWE hadn't tapped into. They didn't really tap into that reality show thing, especially for shows like a Total Divas or a Total Bellas that would really only attract female viewers, and not just female wrestling fans. They attracted outside interest because people who like that kind of reality trash TV kind of show watched that show. And you could have also, and it's likely that they converted the wife or a boyfriend or wife or a girlfriend of a wrestling fan into wrestling fans. They could have turned reality show fans who just turned it on to watch a reality show into wrestling fans, because they did talk about, Nikki and John Cena at WrestleMania and others. They talked about the wrestling. It wasn't so they integrated it into the TV show well. So they did a lot of things for the company. I get it. I understand why they would want to be back, and I also understand why they would refuse to do something if they didn't want to do it. So, where would they have fit amongst all the stuff that went long and got cut? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where they would have plugged in.
Yeah. So Steve, let's talk about this this tribal thing that went, the tribal council.
That segment.
Sami Zayn was almost voted off the island.
First of all, what an honor. What an honor it was to acknowledge my tribal chief in person. I got to tell you, man, there's something about that entrance when you're there live. That's just,
Well, it's better than TV because you don't have to look at that. They think it's a bronze statue, but it looks like a chocolate Easter bunny.
Yeah, they offered a tribal chocolate AR.
The tribal treat.
Awesome. But it was, that whole segment was such a home run. And especially to think like this was thrown together on the fly because they didn't know until like days before that Keish and Afa and Sika were not going to be there. So so that was just so well done.
And it had you on the edge of your seat.
It did. Roman's reaction, and then CeeLo going to do the Hitman job, and then Jay coming through, and then the promo and the footage and everything worked. And then the match with the injury, there is an Uso down, but there's one that's ready to go, and they allow Sammy to go, and then wouldn't you know it, Sammy gets the titles. Imagine if he had lost.
Right.
So now what? Because Roman made it clear he didn't want to see him or deal with him again until the Rumble, but now he's your tag team champion as long as Uso's down.
Right. If he's if he's injured for longer than that, I guess.
Now, so now we're thinking like, what is Roman referring to as far as like, is it depending on what Sammy does for Roman in his title match against Kevin Owens?
And
I'm
potentially
assuming
the Rumble. either, it could be both. Like, what if what if the stipulations, hey, you can be in the bloodline still if you help me beat Kevin Owens. Oh, and you help Solo or Jay or Jimmy win the Rumble.
Right. Keep it in the bloodline.
Right. And they'll do the whole, if one of the bloodline wins, Roman will say they don't want to face it. They're going to turn it down or whatever. I don't know. The other weird thing, if this is an internet conspiracy theory, please don't take it with any take it with a grain of salt. This is not confirmed. People online are going, oh, in the contract signing segment on Friday Night SmackDown between Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns, when right after Owens signed the contract, and I think Roman put Owens through the table as you do at a contract signing. When Jews get married, they smash a glass. When WWE superstars do a contract signing, you have to go through a table. That's part. The contract isn't legal unless somebody breaks the table. Right, tradition.
Or a Pier 6 Pro. It's one of the two.
Exactly. It has to end like that.
You need a table broken.
But get this. Kevin signed something on the contract, and when Paul Heyman looked at it, he had this look on his face. So people are saying, what if Kevin Owens changed the contract while he was sitting there to say Sami Zayn instead of Kevin Owens, and at the surprise at the Royal Rumble, what Roman is alluding to is that Sami has to do the job for Roman because Kevin Owens signed his name on the sheet.
Let me tell you something funny. Let me talk to you. So,
Okay,
while we're
we'll talk about that segment too.
Yeah, we will. So, as we're driving, earlier in the day, I was listening to Busted Open, and a caller calls in and gives that theory. So, I brought it to the car, and we all thought, like, story-wise, it's actually a great layer to the story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it would be, yeah.
That's
legally, you can't sign someone else's name. Like, it is wrestling, but
I was going to say this is pro wrestling.
And then on the other hand, he wouldn't. He would definitely lose in that situation.
He would.
So.
So I hope not, especially because there was a leak.
Now we can get a tag champ.
Right. So, well, how about this? There's a leak of the expensive chairs, the folding chairs that you can, when you pay extra for your ticket for a pay-per-view, you can get the chair. The Elimination Chamber one is focused on Sami Zayn, and it shows him behind glass, pressing his hands up against the glass as if he's trapped in the Elimination Chamber. So maybe if Sami doesn't win the Rumble, Sami wins the Elimination, because they have to determine a Universal and a World Title challenger. So whoever wins the Rumble could be one, and then maybe Sami's the other. Or if Sami wins the Rumble, maybe they do they do some sort of Elimination Chamber with the Final Four or the Usos or something. I don't know. There's different ways I think they could go with it, but
if it's the chamber and him being in the chamber, it kind of reminds me of that one. I think it was the second Elimination Chamber where it was during the Evolution days, and that's like Triple H had Randy Orton in it to basically help ensure that he would still keep the title.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think.
It was the storyline coming out was Triple H could have saved Batista but didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's that sort of direction that they could take with it.
Could you imagine a finger poke of doom? Only Roman jobs to Sami.
Roman jobs to Sami. That'd be crazy.
Oh that would be a twist and a half.
What a twist! Oh man,
Sean would sue over that twist.
Right, but I think the cool thing about that segment was you had, there's tension in the bloodline because Solo had this video clipped up that painted Sami in a bad light. And then you have Jay go, well, wait a minute, I clipped together my own. These two guys are sitting there on their like MacBook laptops with iMovie going.
Heyman put that footage
together. Heyman put the video because Solo was the one that wanted to do it. So Solo and Heyman are on one side, and then you got Jay and Jay and Sammy on the other. So
Right.
It's
there's the
also
one video that made him look guilty and one video that made him look
it's
innocent.
also such an amazing contrast because for the longest time, Jay was the one that was initially so against Sammy.
And that was the intriguing part because it was the
then War
guy that
Games,
didn't believe in him.
when War Games came to a head, and
Mhm.
Sammy sacrificed himself to, get hit
Yeah,
by
that was
Kevin
the
Owens.
night
That,
that he proved himself to Jay.
Yeah.
It should have been the night he proved himself to everybody, but I know, for storyline purposes, you've got to have some doubt in there as to whether or not, Sammy's loyal to them, who's loyal to Sammy. So, now we're starting to see the pieces fall into place, kind of Game of Thrones style.
But then we
where,
remember
who's
main
aligned
event
with who.
Jey Uso for the first couple of months of the Bloodline beginning.
Right, and he was the one that was skeptical at first. So, it's kind of like history repeating itself. And, Jay was skeptical of Roman
That's
and
what
kind of
makes
almost
this
broke
entire
away. Yeah.
storyline so intriguing and so interesting.
And, if they decided at one point where they said, before Sami Zayn came into this, they go, hey, the plan is going to be Roman versus the Usos in a triple threat match for the world title at WrestleMania because the bloodline is falling apart and Jey Uso wins. I have zero problem with that. I think that would have been a satisfactory ending to the story. However, now that we've got Sami Zayn involved, and I know we talked about this last week, I don't care who wins the Rumble or whatever. For my money, the way this story is going, it would be such an underdog Daniel Bryan moment for Sami Zayn to either win the Rumble or win the Elimination Chamber and win one of those titles off of Roman. It would just be, it would be a culmination of, Sammy's career going from El Generico to Sami Zayn, and beyond. But like, it would also just be, it's such a complete story and it makes sense. This one guy, there are all these guys who are Samoans and they're all, brothers and cousins and related. And then this one outsider, weird white Canadian Persian guy, he's part Persian and not, he's from he's a weird looking red haired guy and all that shit. But he joins the group and he earns their trust and earns their respect. And the way mafia movies work like this is usually they try and kill that guy, or in this case, just hit him with a Samoan spike. But
what's the Samoan equivalent of a cannoli?
I know. I don't know. Leave the gun. Take the coconut, brother. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think it would be such a story that Sami Zayn goes from this guy that is not trusted by them and they're skeptical. He earns their trust, and then the twist is that they turn on him, and then he has to fight back and win the title. I know it may not happen, and it's likely to not happen, and whatever. But I just, for my money, that would be the story.
Whether it's that or him and Owens teaming together to take the tag titles from the Usos, either way, we as the fans win.
Right, but it's just weird that like all the again, last night was the night with the injury to the bloodline and all that stuff for Judgment Day to take those Raw tag team titles. But I guess they do have bigger plans in place. We're at the point right now where whoever wins the titles from Jay and Jimmy and whoever wins the title from Roman has big shoes to fill. So it has to be the right choice. And if the right choice is taking two singles guys like Sammy and Kevin and putting them together, then that's the only way we can do it. That's fine. I don't know. Part of me wants the Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, or whatever, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Benoit kind of triple threat match like we used to do back in the day, and have Kevin, Sammy, and Roman in there, or Kevin, Jay, and Sammy, or whatever. Like do something like that where you can kind of mix it up. But I don't know, man. We're getting into that time of year where your head spins thinking of all the possibilities. We just got to see what happens when
and therein lies
the numbers count down at the Rumble.
Intrigue of the Royal Rumble itself.
Yeah, it's the one thing again we complained about last week. The one thing I don't really like. Yeah, right. The one thing I don't like is that they're announcing a lot of these guys in advance and kind of not. I don't want to say spoiling it, but kind of spoiling. They spoiled Cody's return. So I just hope there are some legit surprises in this Rumble. The winner can be somebody on the main roster. That's never the point, is that the surprise doesn't have to always win. It can just be a nice surprise to get some appearances. Like Zack Ryder or Matt Cardona, whatever he would want to do.
He
Well,
didn't he copyright a few terms of his from Zack
Yeah, it looks
Ryder?
like, especially, yeah, the Zack Ryder stuff. He got the copyright attorney to put, to
even though he made
register
it
them.
very clear that Zack Ryder is dead.
Yeah, but you
I
know what?
guess.
And
Is he
if
though?
But maybe that's
nothing's
the
ever
whole
dead in
point.
wrestling.
Maybe that's the whole point because he basically invented all that shit, except for the name Zack Ryder. Other than that, everything he did as that character was
Yeah, that was him.
his
Well,
the stuff that he created,
exactly, the broski stuff. Like, it was all an influence. There
the
was like
internet championship and all that.
oh yeah, there was a lot. The
The
YouTube
YouTube
stuff. He was
shows,
really
all
ahead
that.
of the time. But here's an interesting thing. WWE has been letting some of their copyrights like expire and stuff. So they let the rights to the name Santino Marella expire, and the man himself bought it and now or registered it, and now Santino Marella is the director of authority in Impact Wrestling, not as some different name. It's actually as he's using the Santino name because now he legally can. This could be an opportunity for Zack Ryder, where like WWE let the Zack Ryder name go because they figure they're not going to use it anymore, and now he has it. He could like, if he owning the rights to his own name and likeness again, he could start reproducing. He did a Matt Cardona toy. He could make his own Zack Ryder toy and release it or whatever. Zack Ryder
And
T-shirts. Now
and
that he
you know
has the
what
copyright.
I could see? Remember when Bailey came out right before her heel turn and she destroyed all the inflatable arm flailing tube men?
Yeah.
They could do some kind of segment where it starts off with woo 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 and you don't know shit,
Yeah.
and then he destroys the whole thing. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, where he could, he kind of separates himself, makes a definitive break between Matt Cardona and Zack Ryder for the WWE audience. That would make a lot of sense.
Although I got to be honest, I wouldn't mind if it was like a thing like Mick Foley or Bray Wyatt, where he had some kind of personality disorder.
Yeah. He gets hit in the head and goes woo woo woo.
We should also talk about this big, quiet, lucrative offer that was made to Austin.
Yeah.
What?
To to fight Roman one of the nights at Mania.
Yeah, so apparently Dave Meltzer reported that he was offered Brock. Sean Ross Sapp reported he was offered Cena, Reigns, somebody else, but nobody's contradicting and saying no, one didn't happen. Apparently, there were a couple ideas thrown to Austin. The interesting thing being that now that his name is back in the news, Stone Cold Steve Austin is now according to the odds betting, the betting websites. Stone Cold Steve Austin has moved up to fourth most likely to be the Royal Rumble winner. So there are a couple, there are a couple names. Cody's up there. Rock is up there. I forget who the third one is, and then the fourth one is now Stone Cold, which is Sammy. So the top four odds wise are Cody, Rock, Sammy, and now Stone Cold. So an interesting development.
I'm still very hopeful that we're getting both Rock and Austin at Rumble.
Well, because the rumor was they didn't do the tribal acknowledgement ceremony. When they announced the cancellation, the rumor was, the Rock's out. The Rock's dropping out. He's not going to do WrestleMania. He's not going to do the Rumble, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff happened. And then the actual truth came out. And the truth was Rikishi got sick. Alpha wasn't feeling well. You can't really have a tribal ceremony. Like, you advertise Alpha, Sika, and Rikishi, and you only have one of them that's healthy and can travel. Can't really do it. So, they had to change course. It had nothing to do with The Rock. So who knows? The speculation is that The Rock is done. He's not in shape. He's not that he's not in shape, that he's not in ring shape. Hasn't trained. I don't know. There's rumors that he's just not going to do it. But who knows? It could all be a smoke screen.
Yeah. That's the thing about wrestling.
That's right. So we're getting close to the hour. We should talk about the LA Knight.
Yes.
And Bray Wyatt segment, which, what a hell of a segment to see live, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, how did that go?
It was fucking great. like before anyone saw LA Knight turn around and see the Fiend right in his face, like we saw him come out and just stand there, and we were like, "Oh shit!" And then the cameras got it, but it was awesome. And then Taker, of course, I was a little bummed it wasn't the Dead Man, but Badass was cool with the bike. He did his
Right.
thing, and then what seemed to somewhat pass the torch over to Bray in that moment, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he fought, the thing we've been waiting for somebody to do for Bray Wyatt for the last 10 years and pass the motherfucker the torch. They finally did it last night. Yeah, man. I mean, it's a cool segment. I don't know. I feel like I still think it's weird that it's LA Knight. And I think they trust LA Knight and they know that he's a good wrestler and a good hand and is good on the mic and that stuff. But it just it really
He's working the
I don't
shit out
know.
of it, though.
He
Working the
like
shit out of it.
it feels like people want to cheer this guy. You know what I mean? Like you want to cheer for LA Knight. You don't want to. You want him to lose against the Fiend, but then if he was like, up against anybody else, you'd probably be rooting for him to win. It's kind of a weird feeling.
Yeah,
I agree there.
I get it, but I see your point.
I'm just curious what since they haven't been announced yet, or maybe they haven't paid attention. What are the rules of the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match?
All they keep saying is they have no idea what it means other than it's no DQ. So they don't know, or they're not telling us.
Well, is it going to be like the
I guess
what was
it's
it
kind of
in
cinematic thing.
Oh, yeah,
Put some money on
cinematic.
it.
I was thinking, what if they did instead of the red lights, they made it green,
Purple.
like it was or like a night vision goggles. Make it look like night vision goggles. I don't know what they're gonna do, man.
We did have the return of the Firefly Funhouse.
Yes, on Friday.
That was unexpected, and
which
cool.
was great. Yeah, man. I that was a good segment. That was very cool to see. And then I guess the main event, Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory. I mean, it was fine. And then Brock Lesnar makes his return, so he cost Bobby Lashley. So we're getting another Bobby Lashley Brock Lesnar feud.
Seems like it.
Okay,
I feel.
Are they going to put it during the Chamber, or are they going to wait till Mania?
What about Rumble?
No, I think they're going to do Mania. I think it's got to be Brock Lashley. I think it's got to be WrestleMania, and I also think.
But I was hearing it was going to be Brock Gunther at Mania, which I'd rather see, to be honest with you.
That would be interesting.
Would Gunther
maybe it's
IC champion? I don't think so.
Yeah, that means Brock would have to lose, or he'd have to win the IC title.
That'd be interesting to see him with the strap.
Right, because he's only really ever won the world title, I think.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah,
he
hasn't
won
won any tag belts or anything.
Yeah, so why the fuck not? Have an IC title, really.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
look, that's the other title that Cena alluded to never have won. Also, Sheamus.
Right, but I think they're trying to. They might have penciled in John Cena if he can do it to face Austin Theory for the U.S. title, and Cena would have no problem losing. I just think that I don't know. Austin Theory to me is not it. Like when I look at him, I just don't look at him and go, "This guy's a main eventer. This guy should be a champion in the WWE." I mean, he's fine. He's just like
turn
I don't
things
know.
around. After his quote unquote burial and then unburial, but
Right.
like, he's still but he's young. He's still got time.
Well, yeah, he's still got time. I don't know. I think he's small. I think he's funny looking. Like, I think those fucking teeth are terrible. Like, the whole presentation is just not, I don't know. Maybe there's, they did a survey and every kid under 15 is a big fucking Austin Theory fan. I just don't see it. Like, I don't know. When you look at one of those guys, like, you go, if somebody told you, oh, Seth Rollins will be like a main eventer for WWE, you're like, yeah, that could probably happen. Or Roman Reigns, you're like, yeah, I can see that happening. You go, Austin Theory's in a main event WrestleMania one day. You're like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't know. That's just my thought on the guy.
I don't disagree.
He's fine. I just don't. I don't know. He's a mid card guy
too. Like, back in like the old Ring of Honor days, you never would have thought Brian Danielson would be in the main event of a WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean,
guess anything
he's
can
also
happen.
Bryan Danielson. There's kind of a
That's
difference.
true. Yeah, he's a wrestling machine. So yeah, that is true.
Yeah, but Brock Lesnar comes back, hits the F5 on Bobby Lashley, then hits an F5.
That always pops the crowd. Brock.
I know when he hits the F5 and the guy lands on the other guy, and then Theory gets the win. Oh man, yeah, Brock Lesnar's back. So
Brock Lesnar's back.
How about this, Steve? This is in an interview with I forget which whoever it was, some newspaper or radio station or something. Bobby Lashley alluded to instead of a regular match with Brock Lesnar, wanting to do a stipulation like an MMA style match or something like that, as like to set it apart from other matches. I don't know how I feel about an MMA style match, but I mean, if they had some kind of stipulation that made things interesting, like a last man standing, or I don't know, something like that,
like the Lions.
Lions Den would be cool. Yeah.
My problem with that is that it's going to be a WWE version of an MMA match. It's not going to be an MMA match, so there's no point to it.
Right, like TNA was able to do it with Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle, but WWE wouldn't be able to pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? That's to say they can't pull it off. I mean, God, you never know, man.
It's not that they can't pull it off; it's that I don't trust them to pull it off.
That's fair.
But I don't know that it's trusting them or trusting management to let them do what they need to do to get it over.
Yeah, that's what I'm alluding to. Yeah,
you know what I mean. I don't know.
I mean, we'll get to see if Triple H is really in power still.
It was like when they were doing that bullshit on Raw. They were doing that shit with Shane McMahon, the underground shit. It's gonna be stupid like that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm.
That's what they should have kept Omos.
Right?
Canceled him along with Raw Underground, but
although,
I don't know.
I gotta say, I do like the hints of a Hurt Business getting back together.
I can see them.
Right. I can see. Go ahead, Ryan.
Especially with Brock attacking Bobby. That's a good. Okay, I'll reform this.
Well, there's rumors that it's going to be the Hurt Business 2.0, which is going to include obviously Omos, and it's also going to possibly eventually include the Street Profits.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be not a swerve, but in the sense that you're expecting certain people in the group, and I think they are going to switch it. I think they were kind of setting you up for Cedric and Shelton are going to be back together, but I think that's a misdirection. I think they're going to have the Hurt Business 2.0 or whatever it is with some fresh faces in there.
I mean, look, unless that's a way to keep the Street Profits together, but give Montez a singles push as well.
Yeah, and I mean
the
mid card guy going after the US or IC titles.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think unfortunately WWE's position has always been, well, tag teams need to have a big breakup angle, and one needs to turn on the other, and blah, 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 blah. When, in other promotions, like in AEW, if one of your tag team partners is going for a singles title or wrestling a singles match, like FTR, those guys have singles matches all the time. And challenge for
New Day.
New
Day they didn't
right? Yeah, no,
they on each other.
No, but traditionally in WWE, that's kind of their MO.
Oh, speaking of New Day, I'm hearing good things about Big E's. I don't know if we're ever going to see him wrestle again necessarily, but
right,
he's making strides as far as getting better.
Yeah, they showed footage of him reuniting with the New Day last week, and he was kind of bouncing around on the ropes in the ring like he used to do. Like he'd go to the corner and he'd put his legs in each rope and then bounce around like he was kind of looked like he was humping the air.
Nothing's going to stop that pelvis, I'll tell you that.
Right. No, he didn't break his pelvis. He broke his neck. That thing is still good. But no.
At least he didn't break his ass like X-Pac.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to wrestle again. But it's good to see that he's walking. He's alive.
Yeah.
Like that's
Being
landing
alive
on your
and
head like
functional.
that. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could have happened to that. So I'm just glad he's okay. If he doesn't wrestle again, that's it's sad, but it's also if the choice is him potentially re-injuring himself and getting paralyzed or whatever, don't do it. So. Anything else, Steve? As we wrap, we're towards the top of the show here, but you were there live. Is there anything that you thought really stood out, or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, the crowd was definitely pissed off and bummed about the cage match,
Right.
but other
Was
than
there any
that,
like pre-show shit or anything?
well, yeah, they did main event. So we had
Okay.
Tozawa versus Bronson Reed, and Dana Brooke versus Nikki Cross. So,
Oh, okay.
other than that, and they didn't do a dark match afterwards or anything. As soon as it was over, Corey Graves ran, and the ring announcer said, "Thank you for coming. Good night."
I didn't even know main event was still a thing.
Right?
I didn't either. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
it's still
But no, man, it was cool. It's been a long time since I've been to a Raw. This was definitely a good one to be, because the house was just electric the entire night. So yeah, man, it was awesome. It was great to be there, and it was a great show. It was one of the better Raws we've had, considering. I
And
wish they would
Philly's
have
got
done
to
more
be a
for the
great
women,
crowd
but
too.
yeah,
Philly's a good crowd. Yeah, but I agree, man. I think the women there could have been some stuff.
They should have done a lot more with the women, but you're also dealing with 3 hours, and it's the one time where 3 hours, and you're going to say that it wasn't enough time, which usually it's way too long, but there's a lot of stuff to cram in, and
Yeah,
but
you got your DX
overall, I was happy with what we
appearances.
got.
You got your
Right, the DX and Kurt
And it
Angle
was
and
a
all that.
great segment, and it was funny. Kurt Angle being there, it was funny. Like that whole segment worked. So, there were some cool moments. It was cool.
Yeah, as a wrestling fan, it kind of bums me out when you look at the results and there's only 4 wrestling matches on a 3-hour show. But I know they had a lot of shit to pack in.
I know. There's a lot of filler.
Yeah, it's just they had a lot of legend. They wanted to get them in. I understand it. It's live TV. It shit happens all the time. Where stuff goes
were there
wrong.
any specific like big time people that were originally supposed to be there that weren't like was Austin supposed to be there or?
There were always rumors that Austin and Rock were going to be there, but it was never confirmed.
But like Hogan,
Right.
Hogan was advertised. He showed up. Shawn Michaels, same thing.
Ric Flair, Godfather,
Kurt Angle,
DDP, Kurt Angle. They were all there. The Bella Twins obviously were not.
Wait, what was DDP doing?
DDP was playing poker.
Yeah,
he
won.
That's
and
awesome.
and then during commercial for you guys, he came out.
Oh, that's
and did the bang and then went to the back.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah, he literally came out for like 25 seconds.
Gotta love DDP. However
Yeah.
much you get of him.
Hey, listen. So yeah, but it was awesome. It was a good time. And on that note, it is the top of the hour.
Holy shit, guys! That felt like I blinked and the show was over. Lots to talk about this week. So if you're enjoying yourself, thank you guys for being, in the live stream. Check us out. On all of our platforms and all that stuff, all the social media. We're at TagMeADate. That's TagMeADate with no spaces. It's all one word. We're on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and Periscope. We're on Facebook. We've got a Facebook group called The War Report. We're on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, type in TagMeADate and hit search and go to our channel to hit subscribe and hit the bell. We're on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/War Report. That's one word as well, WARREPORT. You can get our video stuff on Twitch. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it on Facebook if you're connected with Steve on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter and Periscope, streaming live as well. We stream all over the place. Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. on Eastern Time. with a live video version of it, and then you can go check our video archives on YouTube and Twitch. If you prefer an audio version, Ryan here rips the audio once we go off air and uploads it to your favorite podcast app within probably an hour or less. Usually, it's like Pizza Hut. He'll deliver that audio version directly to your door, and by that I mean your favorite podcast apps such as Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts. Look up TagMeADate or the War Report. You'll see us on there. Excuse me. There
Bless
are
you.
two. Thank you. There are
Bless
two
you.
two wrestling podcasts named the War Report. Ours has been around a lot longer. You'll to be able to tell by the icon, by the graphic that's in the description of the podcast when you go to search for it. It's going to say "Tag Me a Date." It's going to say Steve or Vince or Eric. You know what I mean? It's going to say something on there that indicates that it's our show.
And then no shade. That's just pointing out.
No, it's not shade. It's not. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying that it happens. Two podcasts can have the same name. It's just that ours is like 8 years old and theirs is like 2 years old. So shit happens. So I don't care if you listen to them. I just prefer you listen to us first. And last but not least, just tell your friends, man. We're just wrestling fans talking about pro wrestling. And if you have people in your life that are wrestling fans and they like talking about wrestling, they like listening to people talk about wrestling, they like hopping in the live stream comments and chat and all that, you absolutely can. Just spread the word. Let them know we're here every Tuesday, 6 p.m. on Eastern time. And with that, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to be back next Tuesday, 6 p.m. at Eastern time, because this show is going to be ending. But the War Report, well, it never stops. We're going to hit War Report 30 in no time. We'll be talking about our 30-year anniversary doing this podcast. But until then, we'll just be back next Tuesday, 6 p.m. on Eastern time, streaming all over the internet with another edition of the War Report. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and have a nice week, everyone.